Courtney Greenwood is the founder of Greenwood Marketing Collective, where she partners with tech companies and mission-driven organizations to develop go-to market strategies, messaging frameworks, and brand narratives that drive meaningful results. With over 15 years of leadership experience, she brings deep expertise in healthcare technology and strategic positioning. She also supports entrepreneurial ecosystems through advisory and community leadership roles across Rhode Island. Please join me in welcoming Courtney Greenwood.
Thank you. Welcome to the session, guys. Thank you for the nice introduction. As she said, my name is Courtney Greenwood. I'm founder and owner of Greenwood Marketing Collective. If at any point you can't hear me well, you need me to project more, please wave and signal to me. One other housekeeping item before I get into it. I am recording this session. The handsome fellow in the back is my husband, who is so kind to come and do this for me today. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to stand out without selling out and lead with your authentic values, whether that's in your career or your personal life. So for over about 2 decades, I maintained 2 versions of myself. One was exhausting, and one was invisible. And both were killing me slowly. And now I'd like to just let you all know I want to have some interactive moments to this, so pay attention. What I called my version of my alter ego, if you will, was Corporate Courtney. Has a nice ring to it, kind of rolls off the tongue, unfortunately. So now I want you all to stop and think. If you had to make your own name for your other ego, other personality, your duplicate version of you, how you show up in the world, but maybe not how you feel is your true self, what would you name her? So kind of think about that. It doesn't have to begin with the word corporate. It could begin with something else, whatever feels right to you. But you're gonna keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this session. So Corporate Courtney said yes to everything. She performed whatever was asked of her and tried to meet all the criteria presented. I climbed the ladder as Corporate Courtney. I traveled the country. I, as I said, rarely said no. I kept up an unsustainable pace, and I also had the same exact expectation for everyone else around me. I thought that execution was key and should be the first thing. Business-minded was right next to that. And later on, if there was time, maybe some healthy things like mental health or better interactions with my coworkers and maybe some empathy thrown in for good measure. But she moved fast and she made mistakes. And sometimes this was at the detriment of others, and definitely at the detriment of my career at times. But the fact of this was that she was trained. I didn't invent her, I was taught her. And I was taught her with every article I read and every book, like, a certain time, Lean In with Sheryl Sandberg was real big during that time, if anyone remembers that. All of those things taught me how to act. Some of it was also being a woman in STEM. You try to keep up with all of your male counterparts. That is exhausting and not sustainable either. I was told to play the game, talk in the corporate lingo. I still talk in corporate lingo. I'm still working to deprogram myself of that. I think we can all relate to that a little bit. But really, I was taught by other generations of women to keep the status quo. One great example of this is from a job I was in 2024. My director of product development was a woman. She had been in the industry for probably almost 4 decades. She was in her late 60s, someone I was hoping to really look up to. Unfortunately, during my one-on-ones, half the time, all she talked to me about was my hair. She was very complimentary, but she would talk to me about my hair, or she would complain to me about my generation or younger, I'm an elder millennial, or younger, saying that they don't know how to climb the corporate ladder. And I'm really worried about what executive leadership teams are gonna look like in the future, because these kids today don't wanna work the long hours. She was trying to, again, push onto me and those younger than me, the next generations, this unsustainable concept of the fact that we had to burn other people out in order to succeed. We had to show up as a version of us that was accepted in corporate America or in whatever rooms we were in. If you will, it's more like the palatable version of yourself, right? Not who you really are when you're out with your friends or you're trying to just have a cup of coffee with a coworker, like with maybe your work friends, But it was just another moment for me that reminded me that I was maintaining something that wasn't real to me. I was maintaining a corporate Courtney version of myself. So, in my 20s, I was told explicitly by a few people, don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't lead with being a feminist, which I most definitely am. Don't lead with the fact that you are passionate about healthcare. I grew up in a family that was very healthcare minded and worked in the healthcare industry in various ways. Don't lead with the fact that you lead an alcohol-free lifestyle. Bring, again, only the palatable version of yourself to fit in the rooms that you're meant to be in to climb that magical ladder that we're always promised, right? So I showed up as I was expected in a way that would make no one else uncomfortable. But what happened was it didn't always work, because they said if you do this, it'll work out. You play the game, it will work out. And guess what, everyone? I'm sure you can guess. It didn't work out. I worked all the extra hours. I mean, some jobs I slept with my cell phone next to my pillow. If I heard that magical noise of the email go off at 3 a.m., I would answer that email, like literally answer it at 3 a.m. because I didn't want to not hit those marks that was expected of me. Even if they weren't actually expected, I thought they were because of how I've been programmed. I can't say I regret all the things that I did in those moments, right? I did build a career for myself. I'm here today in front of all of you. I made a lot of amazing friends and people in my network as a result of these opportunities, but they didn't always grow me how I expected myself to grow in those rooms. And the whole time, I really felt my true authenticity was shrinking, and I was bifurcating into these two versions of who I was, right? And trying to reconcile those two versions was getting more and more uncomfortable the more I climbed the ladder, and the more I was seeing the ramifications of this as I went up and looking at others down below behind me, right, who were also coming up. And the thing about maintaining a character is it takes a lot of energy, right? Because you're showing up as something that's not actually you. So you have to really think about everything you're going to say before you say it to ensure you don't misstep, right? You feel like you're walking on eggshells at all time, when really you're showing up to a place where you want to be yourself and bring your skill set, whether that's to something in your family life, whether that's something with your friends. Maybe that's you're building your own business right now, or you're also in a corporate position. You want to be able to show up in a way that doesn't sap your energy just being present, because the work will sap your energy anyways. So all that energy could go towards real things, like actual work and creativity and creating real impact in your chosen area. And here's the cruel irony of it all. All that performing made me invisible because I was becoming a carbon copy of everyone else around me, right? I want to encourage everyone today to think about that part. You know, when you play the game, you say the same things everyone else does, and then you feel replaceable, it's because you are making yourself replaceable, right? You feel like you are just a number, and I can attest at least, maybe some in the room can too, when you work in a big corporate structure. One organization I worked for was 20,000 people, right? I really felt like a number there. I had 3 CEOs above me. That's just insane. I felt completely invisible. And then knowing that the whole time, it definitely affected how I showed up. So I want to remind everyone, be like the couture version of yourself, not the Temu version, right? Show up as yourself, because everyone can get a Temu version. You might have to wait a few weeks for shipping, right? And the returns are going to be a pain. But, show up as you. Because otherwise we're just going to be watered down versions of ourselves trying to fit in. So what was the wake-up call that changed all this for me, right? I graduated University of Rhode Island in 2006 with a degree in journalism. And then I went to Suffolk University and got my MBA and graduated there in 2010. And then since then I was climbing the ladder, and I was working during those times too. But unfortunately, for me to really wake up to all of this and learn the lessons that were trying to be presented to me throughout this whole time, it took 2 layoffs from jobs that I absolutely adored in health tech. Literally blood, sweat, and tears, flew all over the country presenting on their behalf. I cared deeply about their mission and building the function of product marketing at those organizations. I then switched over to try my hand at startup life. Unfortunately, I didn't choose a great startup, and it was every cliche you read about or see in the movies about a startup. A CEO founder who's an aging white male in his 40s who did not want to age, who basically you never knew what version you were going to get of him. Some days he would wake up in the creative room in the office and stumble out hungover. He would microdose during the day. You didn't really know what you were going to get, and it was a lot of anxiety. So the startup experience I thought I wanted did not play out how I thought it would, and I left there very quickly. Another wake-up call was first marriage. That should have never happened, and learned a lot of lessons there too. But between all of these big life moments, there was still all the other things going on. There was still the bills to pay, the cars to maintain, the apartments, the homes, the pets, the family obligations, and all these things where I was still trying to show up as me, but still play this game on the other side. And through all of these different experiences that were really detrimental to my mental health in my corporate life, I realized one crazy thing, is that I lost my sparkle. I remember specifically when I was going through my divorce, sitting on my parents' couch, sobbing, saying, I lost my sparkle. And they were like, okay, like, you'll be okay. And I am. But my sparkle's really, when I look back, it's that girl who, when she graduated from the University of Rhode Island, didn't really think about playing the game, right? I didn't really think about this. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to join the corporate world and make an impact, and life's going to be great. I didn't really understand the structure of what it meant to play nice in corporate world. Another quick anecdote. My first corporate job was actually at Butler Hospital locally. I was a grant writer there. And my boss at the time, she was my first big boss out of college. And it was my first time learning what PTO meant. And it meant paid time off, right? So I was like, oh, so I can take time off, and when I have this bank of hours, that means I can take time off and get paid. And if I don't have any hours, then I just take time off without getting paid. No, that's not how it works. So she taught me that very quickly. But again, like, I realized I wanted to bring back some of that naivete of how I was going to the world, some of that moxie that I had at that time to push back against the status quo that I had lost over the years trying to play the corporate game. And so I really had to stop and think this hard question, right? If playing the game didn't protect me, then why was I still playing it? I was still getting laid off. I was still going through heartbreak. I was still showing up in rooms not really as who I was and feeling lost along the way. And it all really started to feel kind of icky inside, for lack of a better term. So I'd like to say at this time, like, I went on some like eat, love, pray kind of expedition in my life, right, and traveled the world, but I didn't. It was mostly me going through a divorce at my parents' house, kind of going through some introspection, really looking inwards and thinking, what should I do next, right? And during that time, as we all do here and there, I was just scrolling on my phone, looking on the social medias, and saying, look at all these people. They put themselves out there. Could I be that person? And looking at this, I saw a lot of carbon copies again. I'm going to say that word a lot probably. But I saw a lot of carbon copies of each other. And I'm like, I don't really know. That doesn't really quite feel like me. I could try that, but I don't really know if I want to. So I thought a little harder, and I said, okay. In my corporate careers, or in my careers, I became a product marketer. And for anyone who's not familiar with that, it's basically like this middle position between a product development software team and the marketing team, where you're like a liaison between the two. You're kind of like a translator. So I take, to really kind of break it down, I take like geek speak from like the nerdy, devy, techie people, and I know who my ideal audience is that we're selling to, and then I translate it into having it resonate for them, and then I pass it over to the marketing team and collaborate with them to ensure that it resonates. So I thought, if I can do this in the corporate world, I'm pretty sure other people could use this in other areas, but first maybe I should hold a mirror up and do this to myself, right? Because if I can help other people align their messaging and positioning to get their products to resonate in market, why couldn't I do that with myself or other human beings, right? To create my own authentic narrative so I could show up as a person who's leading with my own values. So that's exactly what I did. I rebuilt myself. But this time, instead of showing up as a corporate watered down version, I showed up as myself fully. And crazy thing happened. The right people started to find me, and the wrong opportunities didn't. Because when I first started out, I just wanted to work with anyone and everyone, right? If you had a pulse and a budget, you were my ideal client. And I quickly learned that's going to get me some headache clients because it wasn't the right fit, because I still wasn't fully there, right? Because starting something on your own is scary too. So I then had to learn, what are my core values that I want to show up with, And that's someone who believes that marketing yourself isn't always about being the boldest and the busiest in the room, right? It's not always aligning yourself with hustle culture. It's playing the long game, because that's how you're going to win the long game, right? And when I stopped doing the things I thought I was supposed to do, I was able to show up as myself and found my people organically, which was really magical. It didn't happen overnight. I will never say any of this happened overnight. There was definitely many late nights of me questioning, what am I doing? Can I handle this? But once you find your people, then it all starts to fall into place. That does take a minute, though. So I'm not just here to tell you my story, even though it is kind of cathartic and fun to let you guys know, like a little background about myself. I'm here to also give you some educational tips and a framework for how you can apply some of these same things to yourselves. So, like any good marketer, I broke it down. We have 4 things we're going to learn today. And of course, they're color-coded with little icons to match. So let's jump into this. Number 1, everyone needs to get super clear on your values. This is what you stand for. It's not always just what sounds good, right? Everyone has a mission statement or an About Me page on their website. On your LinkedIn, you probably put a bunch of buzzwords. I know I probably have buzzwords still on mine if you look it up. Probably innovation and excellence and, a game changer and, ceiling breaker and all these things, right? But there's a difference between actually posting those things and the buzzwords and actually living them day to day. Because it should really be a filter that you think about through every decision you're making. And that's not simple to do. They're going to force you to show up exactly as who you are. So, once you get really clear on your values, you're going to be able to find your people. So here are some questions. And again, I believe Bryant is passing all the slides on afterwards, I was told? Yes. Awesome. So you guys will be able to get these slides, or my contact information is at the end, so I don't want to have everyone just scribbling real quick. But here are some questions that I used on myself, and I also use with clients of mine to help them get their messaging right, either as a person or for their businesses. So 1, what do I believe that others in my field might not? What am I not willing to compromise on, even if it costs me an opportunity? And what would people say I stand for if they watched how I work? And that's probably my favorite one here, because that's you showing who you are without advertising it. It's just how you show up in the world. And that might be how you treat other people. It might be respecting people's deadlines. It could be a lot of different things. But it's just showing who you are and your values without having to actually state them clearly. You can look on my website, and I don't state everything explicitly, but if you read my About Me page and like the missions and values and the statements page, I do signal things like I am all about DEI. I'm all about inclusion. I'm all about helping other people elevate themselves. So I signal those things, which I hope also helps weed out people who maybe not are as aligned with those areas. So I want you to think about your values not as a liability and something you need to hide to ensure you fit into whatever room you're sitting in. Think of it as a differentiator for who you are. Number 2, we're going to name your unfair advantage. Okay, this is your differentiator. See, they're all going to work together. In my work as a product marketer, we look at like feature benefits, right? And those are your differentiators of your products and how you sell something. Each of us have the same things as human beings. So think about different things that you bring to the table as your features and what benefits does that bring to your world and those around you. And It's not going to be your credentials. It's, I have an MBA. That doesn't mean anything sometimes, right? It might open a door possibly or impress some people, but again, fancy letters don't always mean everything in the world. And it's not your years of experience, right? I graduated in '06. A lot of people graduated in '06 that year. It's what you've done with those years in between that make you different. Just because you were able to take a lot of tests doesn't mean that you're going to perform your chosen career well, or you'll even end up in your chosen career. What I want you to think about are the things that are going to give you an unfair advantage. And those are your personal experiences, your perspectives, and your approach, and your identity. And now, I'm going to get a little bit personal here, a little more personal, and explain to you what I feel my unfair advantage is. And nowadays, people are talking about lore. For a while, we said our origin stories, and now I hear the kids are saying their lore. So I'm going to tell you the lore of my healthcare passion. So growing up, my grandparents lived in the same house as my parents. So I had 4 adults and me as an only child. And it was a really great experience because I got my grandparents every single day. Unfortunately, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia when I was 9. And during that time, she always lived with us. It was a very tough time for my grandfather and my parents to help her, but also keep raising me as well. Through that time, I saw my grandfather honor his promise that he was never going to put her into an assisted living facility, so she always stayed in the home with us. He also was her advocate. So when she was having other health issues related to her Alzheimer's and dementia, he would be calling her primary care doctor. He would be, he was on the phone all the time trying to advocate for her to get more help, more support, and all those things. My mother was a nurse at Hartford Hospital. My father was an electrician at Hartford Hospital. So while we had something going on at home, my parents also were working in the healthcare industry. And I got to see both sides of that as well. My mother was always going through a restructuring at the hospital because the hospital wanted to save money, right? So they'd be downsizing. They'd move her wherever they wanted to, just like little chess pieces, be like, nope, you used to work on the burn unit, now you're going to be on the TB unit. Nope, now you're going to be on the gastro unit. And it was a lot. And my father was one of the heads of the engineering department, specifically electrical, and so he was doing a whole different side of healthcare. So I got to listen to what they went through from the business side of it, if you will, and I got to watch my grandfather and my parents too fighting more of the patient advocacy battle side. And it was a lot, and I don't really think at that moment I knew what I was experiencing because I was between the ages of 9 and 12, and this really instilled something in me. Unfortunately, my grandmother did pass away when I was 12. Despite my grandfather calling up for days on end, her heart threw a clot to the main artery that provided blood to her stomach, and her stomach became gangrenous, it was basically like moldy. And so she didn't want to eat for days, right? And she kept saying she wasn't hungry. The doctor said, she's just being difficult because of her dementia and Alzheimer's. Just give her Ensure. Didn't work. Went into the ER, and that was last time she was in our house. So she passed when I was 12. And then my grandfather kind of went on eat, love, pray thing. He went to Morocco and Spain. Like after a year of grieving, he went out with his friends, which was beautiful to see. But anyway, to bring it back to this is what I witnessed. And I remember thinking, there has to be a better way. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would someone let my grandmother get sick and die when they were saying all the things and advocating? Like, it doesn't make sense. So for me, I knew very quickly that I was not interested in being direct patient care. I knew that I didn't want to be dealing with blood and guts and all that stuff. That's not for me. But I did want to help patients and help those that were helping the patients, which is how I got into working on more the administrative side of healthcare when I first got out of college as a grant writer at Butler Hospital. And then that parlayed into more of the tech area, and I started working in electronic health records and trying to help providers have the tools they need to provide better care. And so in my own consulting business, I work mostly with health tech companies. So again, my lore, to tie it back here, is that I help healthcare startups turn complex concepts into clear customer stories because physicians need to be empowered through tech to deliver better patient outcomes. I could probably make that slightly more concise. But that's my ethos about what I do and why I show up every day. This has helped me. Naming my unfair advantage has helped me in different interviews to get positions, right? It's helped me be able to tell people my why. It's personal. It's not just, oh, I do product marketing and like, yeah, I have worked in health tech. It's like, no, I actually really give a shit that this product is good and gets in the hands of people that are going to use it to then help patients. Like, I really deeply care about this. So I want you to ask yourself, what do I bring to my work that comes from my life and not just my resume? What's the perspective you have that others might not? And what have I been told to hide that might actually be an asset? Because that's what you want to look at, right? It's telling those stories that sometimes are kind of uncomfortable to really make an impact in how you show up and how you're seen. Because when we tell those stories, we're being really true to ourselves, and we're going to show up differently than if we try to hide them, right? Because sometimes with stories that are hard to talk about, there's a certain amount of shame attached to them, some of them, right? And we don't need that. You can turn this narrative around because it's your narrative. It's your story and tale to tell. So now, building block 3, we're halfway there. You get to choose who you're for, and then you can release everybody else. Now, I want you to kind of think about this to get specific. And now I know this is kind of scary because you're thinking, oh no, like if I niche down too far, who's going to be left? Who in here remembers the movie, He's Just Not That Into You? Yes. There was one character in the movie, Gigi, played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, if we remember her, and she was hungry for a partner. She wanted to find a boyfriend, a man, a husband. That's all she wanted. And so she was constantly, like, literally waiting by the phone in this movie. And someone else was always telling her, like, you know, if it doesn't work out, keep moving on, move on, move on. And she's like, but then there'll be no one left. And I don't want you guys to think about that kind of mindset when you're thinking about who you choose that you're for. Because, again, when you show up with your values, leading with those, you will find your people. You're already missing opportunities by being for everybody. And as I mentioned before, when I first started my consulting, I just said, I'm a marketing consultant. And that's super broad. And I tried to do all the things for everyone, even the parts I didn't like. And that's when I didn't get where I wanted to go. When I got more specific and aligned it with my values and what I was trying to do, that's when I was able to find my market. So again, it's not about excluding people. It's about finding the ones that are right for you. It's not meant to be limiting. It's meant to be liberating. And I hope you guys can kind of see that difference there, even though it can be scary. So ask yourself, who do I do my best work with? Who do I actually enjoy working with? And who gets the best results from how I specifically work? And that's who your audience is, and you can really just release everyone else from your purview. The other really cool thing about doing this is building your network. I am really good friends with a lot of marketers who do really similar things to what I do, but we don't do the exact same things. And because of that, it's about collaboration and community, not competition. And so you can also bring that into other areas of your life too, but you're able to pass referrals back and forth. It might be like, oh, there's this new opportunity even at like my corporate job. It's not right for me, but maybe it's right for Jane Smith I know who's not happy at her job down the street, right? You can connect people because just because you're helping someone else shine doesn't make you shine any less, and that's what I always want people to remember. So you should focus on who your people are, but then also help other people find their people. And then the fourth building block, possibly the most important one, is that you have to say it out loud, very loudly. And this is probably one of the really uncomfortable parts. I know for myself, it is. For maybe the first year or so of my business, I barely showed my face on Instagram or LinkedIn. It was all graphics and stock imagery and photography, right? Because it's scary to put yourself out there. I also actually started my business without my last name. I had a different company name, so it was even easier to hide, right? Because when you do this, it's not about you staying humble or not trying to talk about yourself. You're actually gatekeeping your magic and your essence to other people. Because that's the thing, is like, it's not just self-promotion. You're actually hiding yourself from the people who need you. And that's the whole reason that we pick our careers and our fields that we want to go into, is because we want to make a difference, hopefully, right? It's not just a paycheck, hopefully. And so when we don't show up authentically as ourselves, we're doing a disservice to everyone else. So for this, I also want people to think about transforming how you speak to yourself. And this is part of the narrative work, right? There's different ways to say the same thing. For me, I could say, I have 15 years of marketing experience and an MBA. Cool, nice story. But that's not really saying anything else about who I am or what I fully bring to the table. That's just kind of like checking some boxes, right? But what I could say is I help growing companies turn marketing chaos into strategic clarity, because that's the core of what I deliver. The other stuff is just saying oh, I'm looking at her piece of paper, her resume. That's nice, that's nice, that's nice. I know she can back it up, but what's she actually bringing here? And so that's what I want you to think about when you put yourself out there and you show up for others in public. Is I want you to think about what you bring to the table and actually state it. Be bold with it. Because each of us is unique and have had those unique life experiences we talked about in one of the other building blocks, that you can now bring that in here and make it your statement. Another key thing is values. We're living in a moment in time right now that is unprecedented, as we've all heard of since about 2020, and everyone has an opinion. Everyone's leading with their values in a way, but it might just be reposting and sharing things on the internet. There's a lot of echo chambers out there. I want you to think about how you show up and what you post. You're not just posting for clout, you're posting to show up with what you really believe in. And again, that's that filter that you're going to have to put it through to make sure you're doing that. I want you to think about that when you're writing about yourself, when maybe you're reworking your resume. It's actually showing your values, but you're kind of signaling them, right? I mentioned this before when I talked about my own About Me page on my website. You signal your values with maybe not actually screaming them out loud. And those people will notice those key words that maybe aren't buzzwords, right? But they're key words to attract the right people to you. And so now I want to give you all something, right? I want to give everyone in this room permission. I want you to have permission now to really think about yourself and get specific, right? I want you to be specific so that you stop trying to appeal to everyone and you be specific enough to appeal and attract those that you're meant to be working with. I want you to have permission to be visible and take up space, because everyone in this room has something special to offer. We have a beautiful room here of human beings, and each of you have something great that should be visible to the world. And lastly is permission to be yourself, because you cannot stand out by blending in. As I mentioned earlier, we want you to be a unique version of you, one of one, if you will. So don't let yourself fall into the trap of watering yourself down just to be a palatable version of who you think you're supposed to be. And so I'm going to leave you guys with a little bit of homework, okay? And this isn't something that you do when you have time. I want you guys to really think about it and do it this week. I know it's Thursday. This week, maybe Monday. But first, I know we don't really have paper, but if you want to use your phone or just mentally, I want you to name the version of yourself. I kind of teased this at the beginning. Did everyone think about it? Do I have any brave souls that want to raise their hand and tell me what your alter ego version of yourself would be named?
My name is Vivian.
Hi, Vivian.
Restrained Vivian.
Restrained Vivian. Do you want to give any insights?
I would say restrained because, with my personality, I'm not sure if people are ready to accept full on. I might be a little bit loud or, maybe, I think the word would be loud, I would say, in the corporate world, maybe opinionated, and I have to just keep that in check to live in a corporate environment.
Yeah, and that never feels good.
No, but mama's gotta pay the bills.
Yeah.
But I hear exactly what you're saying. It's the trick, is to find balance. So it's to find an area where restrained Vivian can kind of let the lid off every now and then, and still not get negative feedback.
Do you feel like you found some people you can let restrained Vivian go from?
Yeah, I have, and if I hadn't, I think I would just die inside, or else just so coiled up on it's just not a good feeling.
Yeah. I've always equated it to feeling like I'm drowning. I don't know if anyone else has ever felt like that in life, where it just feels like you're in such a place where you're not being real. You feel like you're drowning. So I can relate to that. Any other brave souls? Yeah.
I think it's interesting that it's
Yeah.
so spot on, and I've kind of lived it because I was in the corporate world, and then once I left and I started my own company, I took my name, who I knew that I was, and I made it my company name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did everything that you were saying about like living authentically, and it's very scary. So
Yeah.
mine is Fit Fun Party because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fitness instructor, but like that's what I'm known as.
Yeah.
And that's who I truly am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to me because you're so right. Once you start embracing the fact that you do things a little differently and you start owning up to it and
Yeah.
being as your true self and being authentic,
Mm-hmm.
that's when things start to go in the right direction.
Yeah.
For years I thought I had to do it like every other fitness instructor. I had to be just like them. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, no, I'm comfortable that I do things a little differently. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed everything you said because I was like, oh, I did it. It does work.
And now you can like check a different kind of box, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I get it now.
Yeah.
I love that.
Really interesting.
I like that you have like not the negative, right? The corporate Courtney, like you have your new identity, right?
Who I am.
Yeah.
So it's just everything feels cohesive.
It's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Very cool. I think I may have seen another hand over here. Yeah.
I had a hard time landing on it, of thinking about it during your conversation, but I texted someone the other day because we're in a working group to rethink how we do our sourcing process in the bank.
Mhm.
And I feel like at times I will message that group and be like, hey, I think we need to do this, this, and this by next week. What do you all think? And then sometimes it's silence. So I message my friend on the side and like, am I annoying? So I think it's like, am I annoying you, Casey? But I also have received the feedback is like, you make things happen. So maybe that is my unfair advantage is let's make this happen. I want to work with people that move really quickly and want to make change happen or make really interesting, be a part of really interesting projects. But sometimes I worry that I annoy people because I'm always like, well, what do we do next? Or like, are you all aligned on this? Okay, let's keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And, I have to kind of, like you said, Vivian, find that balance of like, no, I'm not annoying people, like I'm trying to be a leader, but also like, is there a way that I can approach this differently to get folks to respond, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of leading is holding people accountable, which sounds like you're trying to like keep the project moving, Yeah. Anyone else want to share? No pressure. Yeah.
I would say on the please and thank you, Dana. I'm a fundraiser at the food bank, and I think I'm always saying I like people to say please and thank you, to be appreciative. And I think that for me, kindness is very, very important. And I like to lead with kindness, but I expect kindness in return. And I think that when I make that very clear,
Yeah.
even just saying thank you for something, or could you please do this, it makes a huge difference. And I've surrounded myself with a different kind of, team and area where I'm working. So that made sense for me.
I love that. You like identified it, but then you also said like, this is a value of mine, is kindness, which I think is a beautiful one to lead with. We need more kindness.
To get to that place.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
I can identify with what you were talking about, so I kind of have the negative version and the positive version, maybe depending on who you are within my organization of, I could be what now, Erin, or what's next, Erin.
Yeah.
I think my staff is kind of like, oh God, another thing that we're going to do now, but I think my board is like, all right, what are we doing next? And so I have to kind of straddle both of those worlds and figure out how to
Yeah.
everyone and myself too, right?
Right.
To be engaged and
Yeah.
interested in the role that I have to move forward.
Yeah, that can be definitely difficult. It's like bifurcating, wearing different hats depending on who you're talking to and what information you're sharing and how you're showing up, and it gets exhausting. So, well, thank you guys. I'm going to keep it going. So the next one is for you to write down, or again, you're going to get these slides, but to think about like 3 of your non-negotiable values, right? Like you said, kindness is a value of yours, which is amazing. So think about those 3 things that you always want to show up with and lead with, and those should be part of how you're now going to reposition and rebrand, remessage yourself. Next is I want you to identify at least one unfair advantage you've been hiding. I would venture a guess most of us have many unfair advantages we're hiding. We might just be nervous to really let them shine. your loudness could be an advantage, right? So I just want you to kind of sit back and think about it. Next is complete this sentence. I do my best work with people who, I'll complete it. I do my best work with people who don't say, we should do this because it's always been done this way. I hate that sentence. Those are like the worst words ever because they don't make progress. They don't change anything. If it's always been done that way and you see it's broken, you need to fix it. And so if people just want to continue on with that, it's just, it's a pet peeve of mine. So I do my best work with people who are more progressive and want to try new things, you know. Just because you try something and if you fail doesn't mean it's a failure. It means you learn something, you know. So that's kind of like my people. So think about who your people are in that way. And the next is I want you to update one thing, right? It could be big, it could be small, it could be your LinkedIn headline, it could be maybe adding a new little like quote to the bottom of your business card or your email signature. Just think about something you could do to kind of start to test the waters and make yourself comfortable showing up in a more authentic version of yourself. So again, start now. You can start small, but just start visible. So the next is just remembering how to build something that lasts. I said it in the beginning, marketing yourself or anything isn't always about being the loudest and the busiest or about, you know, hustle culture. It's about being yourself and being true and playing the long game so you get results that last and results that you're pleased with. So now I wanted to share something with you all that it's kind of exciting to say, but I was able to retire. Corporate Courtney. Not quite there yet, one day. But I was able to kind of put her in just away, right? Maybe she's on an island in a cabana somewhere. I hope she's really happy. Like, she served her purpose for me, but now I show up every day as myself, as much as humanly possible. And that's what I really want for all of you too. Because it's exhausting and you make yourself invisible by not doing that. So, as I say at my own business, I believe in bold ideas, authentic execution, and getting results that matter for my clients. And I think that you can take some of those key phrases and apply them to your life too. So, again, thank you all for your time today. I'm Courtney, not Corporate Courtney. And it's been a pleasure getting to spend time with you. I don't know if we have time. Yeah. If you don't have any now, it's my website. You can email me, find me on Instagram. You can always message me, but I'm happy to. I guess I'll say one more piece here is that everyone in this room now, I don't know you all by name, but we've had this moment together, and if you need something, you're trying to find your people, you can reach out to me. If you have a question, you want to follow up on something, I'm pretty friendly, so just you can slide in my DMs and have a quick conversation. I'm happy to grab a cup of coffee or anything, so yeah.
I have a question. So Corporate Courtney, was she the person answering emails at 3 a.m. and just like always like locked in? Was that because it was the culture of the organization as opposed to a pressure you were putting on yourself?
Both. I think that I acknowledge the fact that there was some of that pressure. Again, like many different types of industries have a lot of pressure. Tech has a lot of pressure, and a lot of people who are very type A and driven and who don't stop. So I think part of it was being in that culture that made me adapt to be that, or maybe brought it out in me, that was already in me. But I also set myself, my own expectations for who I am as a person pretty high. My husband in the back can attest to that. And yeah, so I really do put a lot of pressure on myself too, which is something I've gone to therapy, because I think everyone can benefit from therapy to work on. Yeah.
Do you think you would have taken the leap of faith to go out on your own without the layoffs and like your first marriage? Do you think you would have been able to get away from Corporate Courtney?
I don't know. I think that some of those were like blessings in disguise, or kind of like we were talking about in our first session. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she talked about pivot, right? And those moments that make you get creative and make you pivot. I also, for my company, I started it in 2024, January 2024. I was having a big birthday, my big 4-0, and I'd always wanted to start a marketing agency, consultancy, something. And I'd been dragging my feet for over 10 years thinking about it and talking about it, but I just kept jumping corporate jobs and climbing the ladder. And I always had this dream. And so that year I was like, it's either now or never. Like, I'm just going to give this a shot and see what I can do. So I started building quietly in the background while I was in corporate. And then I was laid off. So I had laid some groundwork for 6 months, got laid off July of 2024. And then I took some months and I focused solely on that. I was still looking for a corporate job because I have to pay my bills, right? So I was doing both, and I still do both right now. But in my current role in corporate, I showed up differently this time in the interview process. Like on my LinkedIn, it has my business. In my resume I gave them, it had my business. People who know I'm at this today from my corporate job know I have a side hustle, right? Side hustle, but yeah, you know. So I am showing up every day, even in that place, as myself fully as I possibly can be. And it feels a lot different. But I think some of those things helped push me to be a little more bold, because I'm like, okay, if I can live through a terrible first marriage, a bunch of layoffs, like this other stuff isn't as scary anymore. Any other questions?
Thank you to Courtney, and thanks for
Thank you guys so much for listening.
I think lunch starts at 12:15, so feel free to take a look.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.